So this is one of those editions of the Vandy program that I've really been looking forward to. And my guest today is actually running for Congress in Illinois in the 3rd District, which is a heavily Democratic district. And she's running as a Republican. So we're going to have a lot to talk about today. But before I introduce Angel Oakley, I'll tell you that she and I go back, we were just figuring out, probably about 15 years in social channels and doing marketing communications and things like that in and around Chicagoland. Angel, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave.
I guess a good jumping off point might be what we've both seen in, I guess, personal, professional lives, the fact that if you consider yourself, if you're in the marketing communications world, which we both have been, and you consider yourself to be either not liberal, independent, conservative, or a free thinker, in a lot of respects, you can be kind of doomed. And you've seen a little bit of that in your professional life. You've seen a little bit of that on the campaign trail too. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, goodness, going back, I think it's actually been 18 years. It's correct, but, even a little bit longer than we thought. But all the way back then, I was always very careful. I was never very partisan, and always very patriotic, but not partisan, so to speak. And I guess I never really paid attention to how liberal our industry was until COVID, really. And that's when it became really apparent, the divide that happened in this country and the attacks that I received from people within our profession telling me to be quiet during COVID, and why am I ruining my career by speaking out. And I had so many people unfriend me, which was shocking because I had such great relationships with those individuals. And then in deciding to run for office, actually 2 years ago, I had run as an independent, again, kind of staying in that lane of being able to talk to everybody. And you can present conservative ideas to people as an independent, and it's very well received. But the minute you put an R and try to present something to a liberal, it's very, very difficult to even continue the conversation.
And if I, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you started running as an independent for this office, and then you switched to Republican. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so even going back, 20 years ago when I was involved in village government, I ran for, I was a trustee, and then I ran for village president with 3 trustees. One was a libertarian, one a Republican, and one a Democrat. And the whole premise was, if you can have respect for one another, we can have vigorous, robust debate, have different ideas. And ultimately, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. The idea is that with a team of rivals, you actually create a better product or a better solution than you would if you're in your own echo chambers. So I've always valued that immensely. And the calling that I had in 2024 to run, the revelation, that was a calling from God. I had a revelation that I should get out there and find out why we're so divided and just go talk to people. So it was to go change hearts and minds and listen to everybody. And so I did a lot of listening. And in that, I was blown away by the level of hatred in people's hearts for opposing viewpoints and people that had those opposing viewpoints. And it was much stronger on the Democrat. When I would talk to Democrats, the hatred actually in their hearts was much more apparent to me than it was when I would talk to Republicans. And I have never really wanted to put a label on myself other than American. I'm a solid American. I believe in the American dream. I believe in our founders and the Constitution. I am a proud American. I really saw when I was in the city of Chicago people that hate our country, and there's some self-loathing there, and that sense of anarchy, just wanting to tear it all down, and then communism and socialism. So I really felt like I had a good handle being out on the ground, talking to all of these people. I felt like I really understood this divide and where people were in their camps. But the one thing that did really resonate with people is the fact that they didn't want to be divided. They didn't want to be in this situation of hating one another, but they blamed the other side for being that way. And so anyway, I was ultimately thrown off the ballot. I was challenged by the Democrats and removed from the ballot.
And this is while you were an independent?
When I was trying to get on as an independent, because you have to get an incredible number of signatures. And so I fell just short of that. And so the Democrats had me removed. So then the next election cycle, I was praying a lot about it. Was I supposed to run, not supposed to run? I wasn't really sure what I was being called to do. And after a lot of reflection, the revelation came to me that this time I was supposed to bring the voice of the lion. So speak truth and run as a Republican. My values most closely align with where the Republican Party is today in comparison to what I saw on the ground in the Democratic Party. So the minute I made that declaration and went out and got some signatures, actually our house got egged. Yeah, I got nasty grams from neighbors. There were women that sent me emails telling me that I shouldn't be anywhere near our elementary schools. And I was out on the sidewalks after school pickup asking parents for signatures, and those nasty grams really made me feel like they hated me and I was some predator of sorts and I had no right to be in the community. And when I replied to them saying that I was following the law and I was on the sidewalk and this is, sort of a civic process, and that the ACLU had litigated this and there were certain requirements, I followed all of those, and their response was, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And I had said, well, I would hope you would see me as a neighbor and not an enemy. I mean, number one, I'm a taxpayer for that school. I'm a mother. I've taught at the schools. I'm sort of a little aghast that I'm being treated as though I'm some sexual predator or something stalking near a school. So this is unfortunately the psychological operation that has gone on, and that people have this seated anger in their heart and hatred towards their neighbor. And I think that that is really the largest issue that we face as a nation, because we are going to end up in a civil war if we can't repair that divide.
So how do we repair that divide? I know you've had a lot of, sorry to interject, but you've had a lot of conversations, you said, and you've made some headway, it sounds like, with people in one-on-one conversations where you can sort of put the armor down and ask questions and consider alternate viewpoints. But you're only one candidate, and you're in a very blue district. And it stretches beyond, if you talk about gerrymandering, it stretches beyond the city of Chicago, parts of Chicago that are heavily Hispanic, all the way out to DuPage County. And it's a mishmash of all sorts of people. So how do you get folks at least talking to each other?
So it really is a individual thing. I think each person needs to look themselves in the mirror and ask, am I part of the solution? Because if the answer is not yes, you're probably part of the problem. We all need to take a deep breath and think about our own actions and how we respond to people. And one of the things I really like to do when I'm in the city is, I guess, just give them an answer they're not expecting. Give you an example. I'm walking down the street. I see a gentleman. He's probably a Democrat. And I decided to engage. And the first litmus test that he throws out is, do you hate Donald Trump? And I said, I don't hate anybody. And he paused for a moment because that wasn't what he was expecting. And yet he liked the answer. And so then he said, well, do you think we deserve better? And I said, absolutely. I think the rhetoric coming out of our legislators across the board, especially in Illinois, has been terrible. And I think it's divisive, and it's not helping us move forward as a country. He couldn't argue with that either. So, we continued the conversation. And ultimately, he said, I don't think we necessarily agree on the actual issues, but I really appreciate your perspective. And he appreciated our ability to have dialogue, even though we weren't in alignment on all of the issues. So I think that that's one of the places where both sides are culpable. Both sides have found themselves where they're slinging at one another. And have you ever read the book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't read that specific book.
So I think this is such an important one. I'd recommend it to everybody to read the book. But it really shows the correlation there with Congress is so appropriate, because when you have distrust, when you don't have trust as a foundation, when you're building a team, it's not going to work. And so how can you have trust when people are so vile with one another? Right? And you also can't be vulnerable. And if you're really trying to sit at the table and come up with solutions, sometimes there has to be some level of vulnerability. I mean, just asking questions is vulnerable, and then throwing out your ideas is somewhat vulnerable, because what if it's crazy? I mean, sometimes you're just throwing stuff on the wall to see what sticks. So we are not fostering an environment that allows us to have the progress that I know the people want to see. Because what I came to discover was people on the ground, they just want government to work. Most of them, the majority of them, they don't care, Democrat, Republican, none of that matters to them. They just want government to work, and they don't want to have to think about it. And they don't want to be overtaxed. They want their services to work. And yet they get pulled into the petty partisan bickering and division that is manufactured by those in leadership. And so the way that I think we get out of that is, number one, we need an educated electorate. We need people to pay more attention and then look at their own actions and how they're responding, and hold their legislators to a higher standard. I mean, when you're looking for somebody, you shouldn't be looking at red or blue. You should be looking at, how do these people behave? What ideas do they have? What types of policies are they going to support? And overall, if we picked problem solvers and people that can conduct themselves in a professional manner, we'll all be better off. Instead, we have legislators like Karina Villa, she's a Illinois senator in West Chicago, who's out there screaming F ICE, the full word, in front of our children, and getting our children are chanting that back at her. I found that absolutely unacceptable and disgusting. We had so many of those Illinois legislators that were encouraging our children to be out of school and to chant those types of expletives. And instead, what I would have liked them to do is have discussions about what's going on and do some critical thinking, do some research, and maybe write a paper, write a letter to your congressman, write a letter to the president, but actually be able to craft and articulate your viewpoint. That I would have supported, but this business out on the street is not okay. And I think the Democrats say they want those things, but they're not modeling them either. So I really would just push back and say that this is going to be something that is going to require we the people to appeal to our own better angels and the better angels of our neighbors to do better and be responsible for ourselves first and hope that that ripple effect extends outward.
The reading your bio, and one of the things that jumped out, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this possibility. We've been talking for more than a month now about the possibility of getting on camera here. And in this time, there's been a lot of, I'm sure you've seen the interviews with Ben Sass, who has stage 4 pancreatic cancer and is kind of sharing parting thoughts with a number of interviewers. But what struck me is that the kind of thing that he's asking for of people who run for office is sort of what is in your bio, in that he's looking for people kind of like him, wasn't a political guy, wasn't a lawyer who said, I'm going to work on Capitol Hill, got into it almost by accident. But then when he got to the point where he had gotten as much done as he thought he could, and he realized that the Senate was no longer the world's greatest deliberative body, he was like, I'm out. I can go be more helpful elsewhere. And it seems to me like you've done a ton. You've done a ton of stuff. You've, various jobs as a kid, donut shop, learning how to shear sheep. You've been, obviously, we spent time in marketing, consulting, social media circles, etc. I guess my point is that it appears that Congress could use more people like you, but what is keeping more people like you from even taking the leap and saying, I got to go after this?
Yeah, well, this is something that we definitely have to address, and that is just ballot access and the way in which we conduct elections in general. The process of getting elected. We no longer have a town square. You think back to way back when, right? You had a town square, and people would come to the town square, and they would have debates, and then people would decide. And I find so many people say to me today, I don't even vote because I don't know enough about who's running. I'm not involved. I don't pay enough attention. And so I don't feel like I can make an educated vote. And sadly, those individuals are probably, those are the people that should be voting, because they're the ones that just need a little bit of help to get that information. And they would probably make a very good choice versus, you have a lot of these people where, have you watched that? Was it 2,000 Mules? Did you ever see the 2,000 Mules movie?
I haven't seen it. I've heard about it.
So, there's a lot of this harvesting of ballots, right? Where they go and they encourage people, there's buses that go and pick up all these people, give them breakfast, and they basically tell them who to vote for. That's very concerning to me, because we have so many people that are basically just voting for whoever someone says to vote for, but there's not really any thought going into it on their end. So the process of getting on the ballot is in and of itself a little challenging. In Illinois, if you're in the Democrat Party, my belief, as I understand it, it's sort of like it becomes your turn. There's sort of this hierarchy of things, you get involved, but once you're picked, if you are sort of deemed as the person that they want to get behind, they pretty much handle it all for you. And they shuffle you through and then fund you. I mean, look at Stratton, Pritzker gave her millions of dollars and, pushed her campaign through. Then you have the Republican Party in Illinois. It's very fragmented. Everybody's sort of on their own. It's mostly grassroots. There's not much of a machine. And many of those running don't really understand how it works. So they're coming in blind. They're having to create the whole infrastructure and how to communicate with the electorate. They're working their own job during the day and then trying to fit this in at night. It's incredibly taxing on your family, your finances, your time, everything. And you often just get a lot of bows, arrows slung at you. So it's not a lot of gratitude for it. And so I have so many people throughout the years, and I've had myself said this, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you run for office, right? So you have so many people that would be absolutely amazing in the position, but they aren't interested and don't have the personality type to run for office. So these two different personality types that you're looking for, the one that actually would be the good legislator, and then the person that can run for office. And then if you want to be outside of the party and run as an independent, well, forget that, because the amount of work and the hurdles that you have to endure are seemingly insurmountable for most. So we really need a better town square. And I actually crafted, so it's not ready to present yet, but I have a We Act. It's the Well-Informed Electorate Act. And my argument would be, we don't need more people to vote. We need informed people to vote. We need an informed citizenry. And so how do we do that? Well, we have to make accessibility to the voters possible. It's amazing to me how many people will say, where did you get my phone number? Or don't knock on my door, I say no soliciting, even though, canvassing is not soliciting, they're two separate things. But, and with the phone numbers and the emails, those are all provided actually by the state. And so I tell people that, but some people get very offended and send you nastygrams because you communicated with them. Again, how are you supposed to do this civic process if you can't communicate with the electorate? So this act would basically take money from other things that we're doing in the election process and streamline it and put it into having one singular platform that is funded, and it is a cooperative partnership between federal and state. There would be federal levers to encourage state cooperation in that, because federal does give the state money for elections. And then as a voter, you would be able to go onto the website and you would be able to see every elected official from local all the way up to federal that's associated with your address. You would be able to communicate with them. You would be able to engage or even submit if you were interested or had significant experience in a given area in which a bill may be coming up. And then for people running for office, they would be able to create a profile and they could get the signatures there through that platform, because all the voters would have verified accounts and they would be able to give sort of that virtual signature. And the signature process just to get on the ballot is a complete circus. Basically, you're getting signatures from people and then you turn them in, and for a couple of months you're going through this challenge process in which the state is funding hiring people to check all those signatures, and then lawyers going through the process to decide whether people should make it onto the ballot or not. All of that would go away with this kind of platform. So I've been noodling on ways in which we can improve the process, and part of that I think goes back to, I'm an innovator. That's one of the things that I think I bring to the table, is finding innovative solutions and being able to really listen to all stakeholders and try to piece together something that works.
You had mentioned that you got a lot of the signatures yourself.
Yeah, over 4,000.
And I, just from having ridden a commuter railroad train in Chicagoland, I'm familiar with the process of someone coming up to you and saying, can you sign? And the funny thing I always do is I don't care what party you are. You're taking your time to come ask me to sign, of course. But I hadn't thought about all the other stuff that goes into it. So, for instance, if you're waiting at a suburban station, are you 100% sure that everybody that's using that station is in your district? And that's probably what the challenge process takes care of. Just given all of the crazy gerrymandering that has gone on in this state, the third is an animal unto itself. I'm in the 9th district, which is a different shape of animal, but an animal unto itself. It seems like that's just a rather painful process. But I guess it's one that you have to go through in the current state of things here in Illinois.
You have to talk to thousands and thousands of people if you're out in the public to get people that are actually in your district. So you have to sort of decide, is it better to go door to door or to be at public events or out on the train platform? I found it better to be out on the train platform and at community events because I created a map and I gave all of my volunteers this map, and so they could actually show everybody where the boundaries were, and people could decide if they thought they were. And we would only take signatures from people that honestly thought that they were in the district. And so that really cut down the invalid signatures that we had. Whereas, you know, I did it, people later tell me, they're like, Angel, you should have taken just take all the signatures you can get. But I just didn't want to have that extra work for my team to go through and validate all of those, because we were trying to validate them on the back end too, to make sure we definitely could have ballot access. So, you know, it's a toss-up. But when they gerrymander like this, I mean, it's just really nuts, even for people to figure out whether they're in a district. See, I'm the orange shape there. And let's take Wheaton for an example. So I'm in Wheaton. When I'm downtown Wheaton and I meet somebody, I say, so are you north or south of the tracks? And I got to tell you, in some communities like Glen Ellen, to say, are you north or south of the tracks, it's kind of offensive in a way. It's just one of those things. That's sort of a joke. But and then I say, no, they cut off the line. So you're in one district if you're south of the tracks and another district if you're north of the tracks. And then in Wheaton, it's north or south of the tracks. If they say that they're south, then I have to say east or west of Naperville Road. You know, so you have these multiple qualifying questions to kind of get at the position. All of that should be redone. I mean, they've totally gerrymandered it to silence the suburban vote. They took these pie shapes out of the city of Chicago to get that city vote influencing the suburban results, which I think is completely wrong, and disenfranchises a great number of people. But my opponent at her town hall, she said that the Texans were racist because of their gerrymandering, but our gerrymandering was necessary because we didn't have Latina representation. I think isn't that race? So we're gerrymandering for race, right? Anyway, we can do better for sure.
And been spending a lot of time having debates with people discussing gerrymandering in all its ways, shapes, or forms. And Illinois is, this is, I've called this an equal opportunity. I've called it an equal opportunity crime or an equal opportunity process, depending on where you fall. And it is interesting to think about the fact that the Illinois map was probably the first really kind of tentacled one, and may have been the inspiration for what they tried to do in Virginia. But how do you answer, I guess, how do you answer the questions from people? I mean, one person, to your point about your opponent, and it's okay if Texas does it, or it's not okay if Texas does it, but it's okay if Illinois does it, and Tennessee's about to do it, Virginia's trying to go back to the U.S. Supreme Court to get it changed. Where does all this stop, or does it?
Well, I went back and looked at the last couple of maps, that were drawn, and prior to Obama, I actually thought our maps were pretty good. Our maps were much better prior. It's just gotten progressively worse since then. No, we just need to get back to really making maps that make sense for the people like the people at large and not for the parties. And both, I think, have been somewhat guilty of doing it to their favor, depending on which state you're in. But Illinois is a special kind of crazy, I think. And we led some of that. And it's really pushed, we only have three Republicans in the entire state. So out of 19 that go to Washington, between our 17 House and 2 Senate, we only have 3 that are Republican. That's terrible. It's definitely not representative of our electorate and the way that we voted.
Well, yeah, it's when you talk about the and people have been comparing, like, Tennessee was more blue, Memphis was more red than Massachusetts is red. But the way that Massachusetts has been set up, they haven't had Republican representation in the entire state in something like 35 years or something like that. And then the other thing, I guess, to Obama's defense, or in Obama's defense, the maps before 2010 didn't have to factor in the loss of, I think it was one seat from the 2010 census, and then maybe another 2 seats in 2020. And so I know that the 2020 map was designed to make sure that, okay, if we've only got 17 as opposed to the 18 or 19 that we had, let's make sure that the same number of Republican districts are the Republican districts. And that's why when you look downstate at, like, the East St. Louis is...
I'm not sure there's much defense there, really.
Yeah, it's a really... Again, I'm calling it an equal opportunity crime, but depends on how it impacts you as to whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony or something even more serious.
So in my district, they drew it such that the split is like 68 to 32, so 68% Democrat, 32% Republican in the results, or have been kind of consistently. But there's a large percentage that is really considered sort of independent or non-particularly partisan. And one of the things that I think sets me apart is that there are a number of issues that are issues that Democrats care about that are really important to me. And so those messages resonate when I'm in the city or, even out here in the suburbs. I care a lot about preserving our air, water, and soil. Like, let's not poison us. And that was actually a really important thing for the Democrats for a very long time. Oddly enough, you put Bobby Kennedy in and he starts talking about that, and suddenly then the Democrats are against it. But it's an area that really should not be partisan. All of us should be able to agree that we shouldn't be poisoning our shared water, air, and soil. We should be able to get healthy food. And the other thing that's very, very seldom talked about is the fact that the green industry, or when we look at the whole climate discussion and the environment, it's been hijacked by industry. So this carbon counting, this whole carbon issue is really just a money grab. And if we really want to get back to talking about what matters on a climate perspective, why are we not talking about trash? No one ever mentions trash. It's not really a sexy thing to talk about, but where's it all going? China doesn't want to take our stuff anymore. So really, where's it going? We're burning a lot of it. So then we have massive pollution from that because it's getting burned. And the other thing is the recycling. Recycling is a sham. It's a complete sham, which really upsets Democrats because they feel like they're being lied to, and they are. So
it's funny. It's funny you mention that because I have some friends who are dyed-in-the-wool liberal who have said to my face, I don't recycle plastics because I know that they get thrown in the trash.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's crazy. It's annoying. But I mean, if you think about I lived in the city of Chicago when they first started the blue bin rollout, and that was a complete, absolute joke. And
Yes.
I mean, we all thought we were doing our part. And boy, this is great. We're going to save the environment, and we're going to lower our own carbon footprint, and we're going to recycle everything. And then you found out it was all just being thrown away. And
It's a charade. Yeah.
yeah, it was a charade. You talked about before, and the environmental stuff is really interesting too, because I mean that's kind of if you think back, like the very first environmentalist was what, Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, Rachel Carson was the mother of the environmental movement going back to the 60s, really talking about how DDT was killing the marine life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you go way back and you think about protecting our lands and soil and all of that, was very
land conservation. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very conservative issue going way back when, it seems. But are there other issues that you have in your conversations with people that you've unearthed that are kind of these ways that you can bridge the gap between there's somebody who's liberal leaning independent, but I can talk to them about this and maybe we can find a little common ground?
Yeah, so the environment is definitely one of those, because when I talk to them about the money grab and how this whole carbon thing was taken over by corporate, they're actually pretty upset about that too. So I'm often able to shed a lot of light on the real issues and where we're at with Democrats, and that seems to make a big difference. And then really health. I mean, getting our kids healthy should not be a partisan issue, and our kids are chronically ill. There is some acknowledgement to that on the Democrat side. There are many of them that are dealing with those issues. A lot of independents, that's a huge issue for them, and they just want real solutions. And universal pay, single payer, which is such a huge talking point on the left platform. That's not the solution. I mean, that's not going to fix the chronic disease epidemic, right? We've got a healthcare system that's broken, and we need to actually fix the healthcare system, because just rolling out more brokenness is not really going to help anyone. And just sticking our kids on more SSRIs, that was one of the things that really just fueled my participation over the years here, was kind of fighting for our kids and healthcare, and talking with our current congressman in Illinois and trying to get them to listen about other things that need to be done. We're not going to medicate our kids to wellness. And, Raja and Kasten, they often have these town halls, and all they really talk about is more access to medication. That's not the answer. So that often is a great talking point with Democrats. They appreciate the holistic approach. And, the other thing that actually I really, really enjoy having the conversation about socialism, communism, capitalism, free markets, all of that stuff in the city. So you go down to the city, and these people are literally outward, they're just bold about asking if you're a socialist or even a communist. And I remember the one guy, he's like, "Are you socialist?" And I said, "Well, I love libraries. My mom's a librarian." She's a retired library director. And he said, "No, not that kind of socialist." And, they go into really just like breaking down our system and how we need to tax the rich, and 76%, we need more regulations on them, and, all the things. And I love these conversations because I explain to them what free market capitalism is actually supposed to be. Unfortunately, what we have in this country is crony capitalism. We have a lot of corporatism, and there's a lot of favors that get done in which big business thrives and little business suffers. And that is not free market capitalism. Free market capitalism is really the only way in which you do away with the class system, and anyone that is so inclined can go and start their own business and hustle, and with a lot of hustle can make as much or as little as they're willing to put in. And when you explain it to them how having less regulation and allowing it to be about creating benefit and a win-win on both sides, they actually resonate really well. And I've had many people say, I've never heard it explained that way, and they consider it. I just really feel like our kids are being indoctrinated to hate our system, and that's why they're being susceptible to be pulled into these ideas of Marxism.
And the part of the challenge, and I've seen this I'm sure you've seen it the last few days with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez from New York saying that you can't earn $1 billion.
Yeah.
And that it is only from taking advantage of the system that you could.
I think she actually said theft, right? Like, steal it.
Yeah, wage controls or something along those lines, which I'd love to get your thoughts on that line of thinking.
We need more entrepreneurs running for office. We need more people that have actually gone out there and done their own thing. And there's just an entirely different perspective. The person that I'm running against, she did justice studies and then went right into nonprofit and then into government. So, Miss Good and Plenty, being able to just always dole out the cash and just getting cash, doling it out, has not had to do the hard work of starting a business. It does not have that perspective. You cannot, this idea of $30 an hour for minimum wage is absolutely absurd. Any entrepreneur starting a business has no guarantee of anything, right? You go out there and you hustle. These kids that are out on the street hustling, selling candy bars, like, kudos to them. Every kid should have to do that growing up. A lemonade stand, something, right? In which they have to understand, I have to buy low, sell high, make a margin of profit, and then I have to figure out what my expenses are to pay people to help me do this and to build and scale. And leaders eat last. When you're starting those businesses, you're usually suffering for a really, really long time before you actually start making. And then all those people that were sitting on the sidelines, watching their Netflix and chill, and they're doing nothing. And you finally start making something, and now they want to tax you 75%. Even though you've been eating ramen noodles for years trying to get that thing off the ground. And it's really, really frustrating to witness the mob mentality that swells around AOC's rhetoric, because her rhetoric is so toxic to the survival of the American dream.
You are, let's face it, you've said it's a predominantly Democratic district, so this is an uphill climb. But if we're talking in November and you're successful, how do you get from today, middle of May, to November where you're on top?
So it's going to be a matter of getting the word out and really being able to get in front of people, because the more I am able to get in front of people, I find that the message resonates. I do see that there are so many amazing people in the city that are voting against their better interest because they don't understand the nuance, and they've been feared into the idea that man bad of anybody with the R, attached to them. So I think that the biggest hurdle is really just getting in front of people and letting them ask their questions and being able to get them to see the humanity that I do have. I mean, I don't hate anybody, and I really do have compassion for people that are suffering, but I also don't believe that handouts I believe you have to teach people how to fish, not just always have the endless giving away of fish. So I take a different perspective, but it is with love and compassion. And again, that resonates with Democrats. So I need support. I need small donors, small dollar donors throughout the district and, from anywhere really. And I'll take some large donors, just I'm kind of careful about, where that comes from. And for the most part, we've bootstrapped everything. And I have not really been out there asking for money. I'm not sucking up to a bunch of organizations and trying to be beholden to anyone. So I'm happier to go the route of small dollar donors, whatever people can contribute. But those donations make a huge difference for me to be able to do some advertising to get the message out, and to create materials to empower my volunteers while they're out on the ground.
Give us the website where we can find out more information.
Yeah, so the website is libertyangel.us, and that's because the Angel of Liberty was my inspiration, and I also hope that people will go and look up the Angel of Liberty that came to George Washington in a dream. And while some say that that's a fictitious story, it doesn't really matter whether it was completely accurate or not. The premise is the most important piece. The angel came to him at Valley Forge, told him of 3 great perils that would come upon the United States, and in the third, it was globalism upon her. And the people were too busy fighting amongst themselves to realize it. And the angel came down and said, "Stop fighting with your brethren. The enemy is at your shores." And the people turned and fought together, and she prevailed, meaning our union. And that is where we are today. We need to remember that we are all Americans and that we should stand united as Americans, even if we have differing views on particular issues. And that together, if we're committed to being a team, we can find solutions that work for the greater whole. And that is the ultimate piece of my platform. And so that's why you'll find me at libertyangel.us. And feel free to reach out if you want to volunteer or help me in other ways.
Angel Oakley, Republican candidate in Illinois' 3rd District. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Good luck on the campaign trail this summer and into the fall.
Thanks, Dave.